So this is our agenda. Obviously, as you know, you're supposed to read do the reading that you're supposed to, the reading for Unit 7, right? This is the unit that we are addressing. And the most important thing about this unit is how to set your goals and how to define your goals in a way that you can actually do your best in order to achieve those goals, right? So, for example, a very simple example. Every year, every new year, we make a list with our New Year's resolutions, right? And the problem with those resolutions is that most of the times we just create that list with things that we want to do or things that we want to achieve or things that we want to happen. And for our own personal frustration, the problem here is that those most of those resolutions, we don't think them through, right? We do not plan them. We just want them to happen. That's what we usually do. Well, the thing about the problem with that is that you're doing things or you're desiring things that you did not actually measure. You did not actually reflect, right? You did not actually analyze if those wishes, let's say, or those desires, those goals are actually achievable. Or even if they are, what are you going to do in order to achieve them, right? So we don't get them, we don't achieve them, and then we get frustrated by the end of the year. So, well, obviously, I'm talking about New Year's resolution, which is a very specific thing, but this actually happens to everything in life that we plan or that we should plan. We think that we're planning, but we're just willing for something to happen. And obviously, in the professional and also in the academic environment, this is an issue, right? Because, well, in academia or in business, if you don't achieve something that you're supposed to achieve, well, that is going to severely impact your future or your career, right? So, what you need to do is to, well, obviously, there is a bunch of techniques, frameworks, methodologies that you can follow in order to make those goals achievable. But in this unit, we are going to focus on a specific framework called SMART. Okay? So, our agenda is first we'll take a look at the learning objectives. Obviously, we are going to talk about your governing values and why our goals effective or why should our goals be effective. So we need to practice how to create these SMART goals. Okay? So learning objectives, we want to evaluate different values and identify your governing values. So basically, the idea here is to understand why our personal values are important in order to achieve our goals. Understand the relationship between governing values and goals. Identify why goal setting is effective in increasing our motivation, obviously, right? And we want to execute setting SMART goals. So first of all, we need to, there's a few concepts here that we need to be able to not only understand them, but understand how they are connected. So first of all, your identity is obviously associated with your values, right? So for example, if you are a workaholic, well, that means that you value work a lot. Working is very important to you, not only because you want to get paid and not only because you do not want to get fired, but you can see your colleagues, right? Your work partners, they're not working as hard as you workaholic are, and they still maintain their job. They're still getting paid the same way that you are getting paid. Obviously, the same salary is something very subjective because there are different ways of defining a salary. But let's say you have a job and you have a fixed salary. It's not a variable salary. someone else that does the exact same thing, has the occupies the same position, most likely is getting paid as much as you are, and that other person is not working as hard as you are. But still, it's not because that person is not working as hard as you are and getting the same amount of money that you will stop, you cease to be a workaholic. Again, because work is something that is very valuable to you. You value it a lot. Maybe the other person that is not working that hard is because that other person values the family more. So they're not doing extra activities related to work when they go home because they want to spend time with their kids, right? So again, the your identification, your identity, they define it defines your values, and vice versa. Your values define how you operate, defines your identity, right? Now, that is also associated with your goals. The things that you want to achieve are associated, or the things that you must achieve are associated with your values, right? So, for example, the New Year's resolution list, right? You define goals there that you they are associated with your personal identity and your values. Now, there are some goals that you just have to try to achieve. You just have to try to get that thing or those things done because that's what your job requires. But the way that you are going to achieve that is highly defined by your values, by your identity, right? So the way that you define how you're going to achieve your goals is directly dependent of your values and your personal identity. Obviously, there are many different ways of achieving goals. Again, many factors may impact on that trajectory, and your values are there. Okay? So as you can see, again, there is an alignment between values, goals, and actions, right? Your values will define why you want to do that, right? Now, your long-term goals and intermediate goals are going to be defined by what you're trying to achieve, right? And that will also determine your daily actions, which means, well, how am I going to achieve these goals? Well, you have to have a clear path, a clear trajectory, a clear goal, and also the steps that you are going to execute in order to achieve those goals and complete those goals. Okay, so here is a list of possible values, right? Again, someone may value friendship more, someone may value achievement more. Oh, it's a person that is achievement driven, right? Some people, they are very community oriented. They want to provide, they want to help the community. Some people are more, they're focusing more on social justice. They're looking for others. Some people, usually artists, they focus more on creativity. Again, here's just a possible list of values, right? And again, these values, they will dictate your goals or how you try to achieve those goals. Okay? Now, how and why do goals work? So goals bring forth effort, duration of persistence, duration, a direction of attention, strategic planning, and goals provide a reference point. What that means is it's important to have goals defined, because if you don't, this is your performance, right? If you don't have goals, this is how you're going to perform. You can actually maintain a performance for a period of time, but that performance is going to go down. So for example, in your work environment, if you work at a place that you do not see a possibility to go high in the rankings, right? So let's say that you are in academia, for example, you are a faculty professor, right? But you see no possibility of becoming, if you are an assistant professor, and there is no possibility of becoming an associate professor, well, the chances of your performance as a professor going down is pretty high because you do not see how you can, how your salary can improve, or at least you know that your salary will increase over time, but that's only because of some policy that will guarantee a salary increase, let's say every 3 years or every 5 years. Well, this salary increase is not associated with the performance, right? It's just about time. So that means that your performance, most likely, we're human beings. We do our best, we strive better and more when we have goals, we have something that we want to achieve, right? So having goals is important. Now, let's be realistic, right? Most of the times we're setting goals and our performance towards the goal should be, ideally, would be, as you can see here, this is how I see my performance or how my performance should be in order to achieve that goal. But realistically speaking, this is our actual performance. Well, that is not a problem. Observe that the goal will be achieved, right? Maybe the performance is not gonna be as high and as good as I expected, but still I will perform well. I will achieve my goal, right? And again, in the absence of goal, well, you're not going to achieve anything because you don't have a goal set, right? Now, what properties of goals enhance motivation? The effects of goals on behavior depend on three properties: specificity, proximity, and difficulty. What that means is, first of all, you have to have specific goals. If you say, for example, I want to become rich, I want to be rich. Well, that's not specific at all. Within what is the time frame here? So I want to become rich within the next 5 years. Okay. Now, what is the proximity? How achievable? How measurable that is? Which is associated with the difficulty sometimes, right? How achievable that is, right? Are you anywhere close to achieve that? It doesn't mean that you need to be close to your goal in order to achieve it, but you need to have a feasible plan to achieve that, right? Okay, I want to become rich within the next 5 years, but I'm not doing anything different in order to do that. So let's say that you are an IT technician and you've been in that position for the past 10 years. You are not doing anything to change that. You're not investing your money. You're not getting trainings in order to become, let's say, a cybersecurity analyst or a project manager. So that means that your salary most likely will not increase. So how close to that goal are you, to the possible execution of your plan are you? And also the difficulty, how difficult it is to achieve it, right? Obviously, there are three levels of goals. You have the long-term goals, you have intermediate goals, and you have your daily tasks. Long-term goals, you take a year or years to accomplish, very broad. And so, for example, by fall 2027, I want to get accepted in the law school by earning an overall GPA of 3.8. Although by fall of 2027 is pretty close, maybe I should have changed it to, let's say, 2030, right? Intermediate goals take weeks or months to accomplish. You may, an example is by May 2025, I want to earn a 3.75 GPA in all of my classes by creating representations to help me learn new information. Again, I should have changed it, let's say, to December 2026, for example. And you have your daily tasks, right? It takes hours, days, or a couple of weeks to accomplish. And they are very specific, right? So again, in order to achieve goals, there are many techniques, frameworks, methodologies out there. Probably the most famous one, or the one that is widely adopted, is the SMART goal setting. And SMART defines five characteristics. That's why you have, so SMART is a five-letter acronym, okay? S.M.A.R.T. So you want to be specific. Your goals must be specific. They must be measurable. They must be action oriented. They must be realistic, and they must be time bound. So what this means is, first of all, you have to have specific goals. You cannot have goals that are too broad that well, if it's too broad, you cannot define how you're going to achieve them, those goals, right? They must be measurable. How can you decide or track your progress towards your goals, right? They must be measurable. So you must be able to say, okay, so for example, let's say that I have, again, New Year's resolution, right? I want to create a list now in January 2025, and I want to get this done by December 2025. So within a 12-month span, I want to achieve this. But I want to create checkpoints. For example, in March, I should have this done. In May, I should have this other step done. So you will know, let's say by June 2025, you know how you're progressing towards achieving those goals. Okay. They must also be action oriented. The goals must be goals that you can actually do things in order to achieve that. What that means is you cannot set goals that do not depend on you. You cannot set goals that depend on others, because then it's not action oriented. They do not depend on your actions. Obviously, they must be realistic, right? So, for example, like I said, I want to be rich. Well, within 5 years, what are you doing in your situation? Is it possible to become rich within these 5 years? Well, maybe that's not realistic. And they must also be time bound, which means, again, you must have a time frame. Okay? So, for example, if we look at these goals here, I want to try to learn how to study better. I hope to get along better with my parents. I would like to get good grades. Well, so let's start from bottom to top. I would like to get good grades. This is not a good goal, right? At least you're not using your smart goal setting, right? I would like to get good grades. First of all, that's not how you set a goal, right? They must be well defined, they must be measurable, right? So now, if you say, I will, um, I will, so let's say that I will take 5 different courses in 2025, 6 different courses, 3 courses in the spring semester, 3 courses in the fall semester, and my overall GPA must be 3.6, for example. Well, then that means that you, you can get 4.0, and you can get, let's say, 3.4, but the overall GPA must be 3.6. Well, so let's say that your overall GPA for the spring semester is 3.4. That means that you have to get 3.8 in the fall semester. Now, what are the courses? How are you going to achieve that? Well, I'm going to study. Okay, how are you going to study? I am going to study every day for 1 hour. So let's say I'm taking 3 courses in the spring semester. So I will study 2 days, let's say Monday and Tuesday for one course, and Wednesday, Thursday for another one, and Friday and Saturday for another one, 1 hour each. So this is how you define your goals, right? I hope to get along better with my parents. Again, very subjective. It's not specific. Now, I will treat my parents better, or I will spend, let's say, this amount of hours with my parents every day. Now that is a goal that might lead you to getting along better with your parents, right? So again, wish, subjectiveness, those are all keywords that you must avoid, right? So again, I want to get good grades by studying harder. I want to obtain a 3.5 GPA this semester by setting aside 2 hours per day to study in a quiet environment, right? So being specific, 3.5, GPA is measurable. I will study in a quiet place for 2 hours a day at minimum, and I can make the time to study if I plan my week out, my grades in, so actionable, right? I will study in a quiet place for 2 hours. I can make the time to study if I plan my week out. My grades in my classes are all A's and B's currently, so this is reachable, and I will achieve this GPA by the end of the semester. That's our timeline, right? I want to get more sleep. Again, very subjective, so you want to make it specific. So here's just another example, right? How you use the SMART goal setting framework. So S, 8 hours per night from Sunday to Thursday. Measurable time can be measured. Creating a bedtime routine that will be started 1 hour before lights out. That's our action. I'm usually home by 10 p.m. I don't have to get up until 8 a.m. And I will give myself the next week and a half to get used to the routine, right? So obviously, it's ideal that you guys try it, right? So this is not a synchronous class, it's an asynchronous class. Obviously, we cannot interact, but I would ask you to try to do it by yourself. So change the following into a SMART goal. I want to get an internship soon, right? Again, very subjective, no timeline, not measurable. So try to on your own, make it a SMART goal. Now, think about upcoming assignments or exams. What SMART goal can you write to help you prepare for one of your major assignments or exams, right? Also, do that on your own. So these are just, again, there is no feedback here, there's no grading. This is not an actual assignment. It's just a recommendation that I would provide to you, which is try these two examples just to see if you understand and you can actually use the SMART goal setting framework. Okay? So the steps in the process are: step 1, identifying and defining the goal, right? Step 2, generating and evaluating alternative plans. 3, making implementation plans. 4, implementing the plan. And 5, evaluating your progress. Observe that step 5 is really, really important. If you use the SMART goal setting framework, but you do not perform this self-evaluation, right? You do not evaluate how you're progressing towards achieving your goal. Well, there is a very high probability that by the end of the timeline that you set, you will not have achieved that goal. And again, you'll be frustrated. You get frustrated because you are not evaluating the progress. You have to, the reason why you set a timeline is not just because you want to have a deadline. It's not about the deadline. It's about the progress. Okay? So that's what we have for this Unit 7. I hope you guys enjoyed this technique, this framework, and you should actually use it. Thank you very much.